If you were listening to this right now, I want you to think about the last time you had to apply for a job or maybe update a professional profile.
Yeah, the absolute dread of that.
Right. Or, even just trying to justify your role during some sudden company reorganization. You likely sat down at your computer, you stared at that blinking cursor, and just felt this massive, heavy wave of exhaustion wash over you.
Totally, because you aren't just updating a document in that moment.
Exactly. You are trying to, manually reconstruct your entire professional value from these scattered memories, and you're just hoping you stumble upon the exact right keywords that some opaque automated system demands this week. I mean, it's incredibly draining to feel like your actual lived experience is just constantly evaporating.
Well, yeah, because it's an entirely unsustainable way to manage a life's work. We're essentially asking human memory to perform the job of a rigorous archive.
Which is definitely not built for.
Right, and we usually demand this recall during a moment of high stress, like a job loss or a major life transition. Human memory simply isn't designed to carry that operational load.
And that specific kind of exhaustion is exactly what we are tackling in today's deep dive. So we are pulling from two incredibly fascinating pieces of source material today.
You really are.
Yeah, the first is an internal seed outline for a companion workbook, tentatively titled the Professional Truth Workbook. And the second is a discussion guide for this broader conceptual framework called What Comes After the Resume.
And what's great is both of these documents sort of circle the same underlying modern crisis. They look at the current professional landscape and argue, quite convincingly, honestly, that the traditional resume is buckling under pressure.
Right, it can't hold up anymore.
Exactly. It just can no longer serve as the primary vehicle for professional truth.
So our mission today is to figure out why that collapse is happening, especially now in the age of generative AI, and how you can actually build what these sources call a worker-owned living professional record.
Which is such a powerful concept.
It really is. It's all about preserving your professional truth and capturing your actual evidence without, turning you into some optimized corporate data object.
Nobody wants that.
No. So, okay, let's unpack this. Before we can talk about building a better system, we have to look at the current surface we all rely on, the resume, and understand the mechanics of why it's breaking down.
Right, the foundation is cracking.
Yeah. According to the discussion guide, AI has fundamentally altered the terrain. It has made professional language incredibly cheap, so easy to generate, but drastically harder to trust. Think about a resume today as a highly filtered Instagram photo, or better yet, a corporate earnings press release.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right, it's a rendering. It's been smoothed out, color-corrected, optimized for the algorithm. But we've entirely lost the general ledger. We lost the original raw files. So the question becomes, does polishing our surfaces actually begin to hide or distort the truth of what we actually do?
What's fascinating here is that the sources introduce this concept of the surface audit. It basically asks you to look at the outward-facing surfaces you depend on. So your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your portfolio.
Okay.
And when you critically audit them, you start to realize they are carrying a burden of proof they are simply no longer equipped to handle. Because words are virtually free now, right? Anyone can use a language model to generate a bullet point, claiming they are spearheaded, synergistic, cross-functional deliverables.
Oh man, the jargon. Yeah, AI loves that stuff.
It does, but the words themselves have completely decoupled from reality. They lose their value as actual evidence.
And so the trust crisis emerges because there's this massive gaping canyon between what a worker actually accomplished and what they can concretely prove.
Exactly.
The discussion guide highlights a tragedy we almost never think about, which is the trail of evidence workers routinely leave behind.
Oh, this part is so crucial.
Right. Consider what happens when you leave a job, or you finish a massive project or exit an institution. You hand back the corporate laptop to the IT department. You lose your login to that dashboard you spent 6 months building from scratch.
Yep, it's just gone.
You are permanently locked out of the email threads where you successfully navigated this massive, highly sensitive client crisis.
You basically walk away empty-handed. Then, 3 years down the line, you are sitting across from a hiring manager trying to convey the sheer complexity of how you saved that client account.
But you have nothing to show them.
Right. The evidence is gone. All you possess is a highly compressed, filtered summary line on a piece of paper. You are essentially asking the hiring market to just take your word for it.
Which is tough.
Very tough. And in an environment where AI can hallucinate a flawless Ivy League tier resume in 5 seconds, Taking a stranger's word for it is becoming a massive systemic risk for employers. The surface rendering is broken because it lacks an anchor.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the surface is broken and language is easily faked by AI, the solution is not to make a prettier, more optimized resume.
No, not at all.
The solution is building the robust layer beneath it, the source layer. The sources talk about it like implementing double-entry bookkeeping for your own career.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. For every claim you make on the public ledger, you have a private receipt locked in the vault. The workbook outline calls this the minimum viable record.
Which represents a massive practical shift in how we manage our careers. We are moving from resume-first thinking, which is purely performative, to source layer thinking, which is evidentiary.
Right, it's about proof.
Exactly. And the process centers on 5 crucial questions you must ask yourself while you are actively doing the work, like long before the evidence disappears.
Let me list those out because they're so good.
Go for it.
Okay, number 1, what happened? Number 2, what did I contribute? Number 3, what evidence exists? Number 4, what claim might this support? And number 5, which might be the most important, what should not be shared?
Yes. Those 5 questions form the bedrock of a truthful record. You capture the artifacts, the metrics, the messy memory traces, right there in the moment.
Okay, but hold on. I'm going to push back here on behalf of everyone listening.
Sure, lay it on me.
If I am already exhausted from a 50-hour work week, managing my household and just, trying to survive in general, adding administrative data entry to my own life sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It sounds terrible, yeah.
Like, how does this not instantly turn into a stressful, bureaucratic compliance checklist just to remain employable?
It's a totally fair question, and the workbook outline actually anticipates that exact friction. It introduces the concept of maintenance rhythms.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
The mechanism here is vital. The goal is absolutely not to spend hours every week maintaining a hyper-detailed diary of your job. The text explicitly states that this habit must be, quote, boring enough to maintain and clear enough to trust.
Boring enough to maintain. I like that.
Right. So practically speaking, this might look like a 15-minute ritual on a Friday afternoon. You open a secure, locally stored file. You quickly paste in a sanitized version of an email that proves you resolved a conflict. You jot down 3 bullet points about a budget you finalized. You tag the date. And you're done.
You just make it mundane. You lower the barrier to entry so you actually do it.
Exactly. You do this mundane maintenance precisely so you never have to panic reconstruct your life during a crisis. If you get laid off on a Tuesday morning, the evidence is already sitting in your vault.
Wow. Yeah.
You aren't starting from a blank page while simultaneously navigating the emotional shock of losing your job.
That is a huge relief just thinking about it.
And once you have that raw evidence, the workbook transitions you into claim mapping and claim maturity.
Okay, let's break that down.
So a claim is the assertion of what you say you can do. For example, I can manage enterprise-level software deployments. The evidence is the proof. Claim mapping is the mechanism that connects the two. It ensures a solid bridge between what you advertise and what your private record can actually support.
I really want to dig into claim maturity because the sources classify claims into very specific categories. And this really explains how we actually track our own growth.
That's a great framework.
Yeah. So you start with an emerging claim. Let's say you are a graphic designer who just started learning a complex new 3D rendering software.
The evidence is light, maybe just a few messy tutorials you've done.
Right. You're just starting out.
But as you use it in your job, you gather artifacts and it becomes a supported claim. Eventually, you manage a massive 3D campaign for a client, you capture the metadata of the project files, you get a commendation from the client, and boom, it becomes a verified claim.
And you also have aspirational claims, which are skills you want to acquire but have zero evidence for yet.
Which is fine, it's just good to know that's what they are. Exactly. The framework also identifies stale claims. So perhaps you were an expert in a coding language a decade ago, but you have no recent evidence to support your proficiency today.
Right.
There are unsupported claims, which you might falsely believe you hold, and critically, there are unsafe claims. This is where sharing the evidence would violate a personal boundary, a non-disclosure agreement, or maybe compromise a sensitive relationship.
Which is so important because understanding the specific maturity of your claims prevents the dual pitfalls of modern work. Like, it stops you from overclaiming and looking dishonest, while also preventing you from underclaiming because you mistakenly assume your complex labor was just, ordinary.
Which naturally leads to a concept the outline calls interview rehydration.
Rehydration, I love that term.
It's so descriptive. When you are sitting in a high-stakes interview, you don't want to spit out dry, disconnected resume bullets.
Yeah.
You want to rehydrate those stories.
You want to bring them back to life.
Yes. You restore the context. What was the actual scale of the project? What were the budget constraints? What were the political stakes within the company? Because you have been maintaining that source layer, you can pull all that rich human context back into the conversations seamlessly.
You aren't inventing answers under pressure. You are simply accessing your own well-documented archive.
You are restoring the scale, the risk, and the human complexity that a flat, two-dimensional job title simply cannot convey. You are proving that a human being did the work, not a machine.
So what does this all mean when we throw artificial intelligence back into the mix?
Ah, the elephant in the room.
Right, because if we are building this rich, detailed, highly personal database of our own professional lives, we immediately collide with two massive modern hazards. The first is the temptation to just let AI rewrite our records and exaggerate our claims for us. And the second is the terrifying danger of corporate surveillance.
Both very real threats.
So, the workbook outlines a mechanism called an AI provenance and integrity log. If you decide to use AI to help you find the right professional language for your evidence, because let's face it, blank page syndrome is real, how do you stop the AI from drifting?
Because it will drift.
It will.
Mm-hmm.
Because AI models operate on predictive text. They optimize for what sounds statistically impressive, not what is factually accurate. You tell it you organize a standard team check-in, and it subtly drifts your language, claiming you orchestrated a paradigm-shifting enterprise synergy summit.
And this raises an important question about personal integrity in an automated world. If we utilize AI to assist in our writing, we must rigorously track our source material. We have to log the prompts we used.
Keep a record of the record making.
Exactly. And most importantly, we must explicitly document the inferences and exaggerations we rejected from the AI. The moment you allow an algorithm to drift your claims without an integrity log, you slowly begin to replace your actual grounded memories with its synthetic hallucinations.
That is wild to think about.
You become a participant in the trust crisis.
Okay, I see the danger there. But honestly, my bigger concern is the surveillance aspect.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if I am rigorously digitizing all my evidence, my context, my private work notes, and my conflict resolutions, aren't I just feeding the corporate machine? Aren't I just voluntarily turning myself into an incredibly data-rich object for some algorithm to parse, analyze, and exploit?
The architecture of the living professional record is absolutely adamant about a core defensive principle here. The record must serve the worker. The worker does not feed the system.
Okay, good.
To prevent this framework from mutating into a self-imposed surveillance tool, the workbook emphasizes privacy tiers. Before you share anything or before you ever let an AI scan your documents, you classify the data.
Like putting it in different buckets.
Right. Is this public? Is it shareable only with explicit one-time permission? Must it be heavily redacted to protect client confidentiality? Is it metadata only? Or is it strictly private, categorized as do not upload, meant for your memory only?
Let's clarify that metadata only tier, because I honestly think that's the secret weapon here.
It really is.
So say you have an incredibly strict non-disclosure agreement. You absolutely cannot share the pitch deck you built.
Oh,
But you can log the metadata.
yes.
You can record the file size, the data creation, the duration of the project, and the titles of the internal stakeholders who witnessed you present it. You capture the shadow of the work, proving it exists and have weight, without ever revealing the proprietary core.
You secure the evidence of your capability while maintaining absolute legal and ethical boundaries. It's brilliant.
That's so smart.
And the ethical builder section of the sources also warns against specific platform anti-patterns. These are structural designs that any system hosting these records must aggressively avoid.
Like what?
Well, there should be no default public exposure of a worker's data. There must be no employer capture. That's a scenario where a company claims ownership of your personal evidence record just because you use their network.
Oh, yikes. Yeah, no thanks.
And critically, there can be no hidden scoring or universal employability rankings.
A universal employability score sounds deeply dystopian. It sounds like something out of a science fiction nightmare where your entire worth is boiled down to a 3-digit number.
Because it flattens human complexity into a rigid, highly biased hierarchy. It reduces a dynamic life into a static metric. That is precisely why the framework relies heavily on a mechanism called witnesses.
Okay, tell me about witnesses.
When you lack a digital artifact or when the data is locked behind an NDA, like we just talked about, you map your witnesses. These are the human beings who actually saw the work happen. A coworker, a cross-functional manager, an external vendor.
People who were in the room.
Right. They can verify your claims. The strict boundary rule here is that they provide human verification governed by mutual consent without ever becoming nodes in a permanent algorithmic surveillance network. It is about human trust, not machine tracking.
I really love that focus on human complexity over machine tracking.
Yeah.
And it reshapes how we view work outside the traditional corporate ladder, too. Because the traditional resume is notoriously bad at handling nonlinear lives. But this framework adapts beautifully. The outline explicitly details how military veterans, for example, can use this source layer to translate their service.
Which is historically a huge challenge.
It is. Instead of listing a military rank or some jargon-heavy designation that a civilian hiring manager simply doesn't understand, the veteran uses their record to map the mission parameters, the resource constraints, the physical risks, and the chain of accountability.
They translate the underlying capability into verifiable civilian claims.
Exactly, rather than forcing an unnatural, poorly fitting title onto their experience.
The focus shifts entirely from the label to the evidence, and the sources also provide a contribution inventory designed specifically for unpaid caregiving and emotional labor.
Oh, this part was so validating to read.
Right. Managing a household, coordinating elder care, responding to daily logistical crises. This is intense, complex work involving planning, negotiation, and resource allocation.
But the traditional market totally ignores it because it doesn't come with a W-2.
Exactly. The source layer allows an individual to track those capabilities and recognize their own administrative and crisis management skills.
I love that validation of unseen labor. But I have to admit, when I read the section titled Family and Youth Adaptations, my stomach dropped a bit.
Uh-oh. Why is that?
Well, the sources discuss project memory cards and strength stories for kids and teens, helping them capture their efforts and problem solving. And my immediate reaction was fear. Like, are we seriously prepping 10-year-olds for the labor market?
Ah, I see.
How do parents help kids notice their contributions without accidentally making them feel measured by systems? We cannot turn childhood into a terrifying, lifelong employability project.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text explicitly shares your exact concern.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. The youth adaptation is entirely governed by what the sources call privacy-first sharing rules. The mechanism is not about building a junior resume or prepping them for corporate extraction. It is about narrative building. It teaches a young person how to notice their own intrinsic strengths, their creativity, their persistence in a difficult hobby, their teamwork in a local sport purely for their own self-awareness.
So it's for them, not for a future boss.
Exactly. It builds internal confidence. It teaches them that they have agency and capability, rather than teaching them how to perform for an external audience or an algorithm. What belongs at home stays at home.
So the goal is to give them ownership over their own story before a system tries to tell them who they are.
Precisely.
Which circles back to what I think is the most crucial moral boundary laid out in the entire discussion guide. It is the hard, non-negotiable line between professional evidence and human worth.
That distinction is the anchor of this entire conceptual framework. The guide states very clearly that the living professional record exists simply because modern systems require evidence before they offer opportunity.
Right. You need proof to secure a job or to negotiate a salary or to pivot industries.
But that record must never, under any circumstances, become a measure of your dignity.
Do not over-credential ordinary life.
Exactly. You do not need to translate every private moment, every hobby, or every family responsibility into optimized professional value language just to prove you matter.
The record is a tool.
Yes. It helps you move through bureaucratic systems with your integrity intact. But you already possess inherent worth. You do not need a database to prove your humanity.
That is exactly the kind of grounded perspective we need right now, especially as AI systems continually attempt to quantify, scrape, and evaluate every single thing we do.
It's so true.
So, to wrap this all up for you listening today, the traditional resume isn't entirely dead, but you must recognize it for what it is. It is just a rendering. It is the glossy brochure.
The real power, and honestly the only way to truly protect yourself in the age of generative AI, lies in building that governed, worker-owned source layer beneath it.
Capture your evidence while you still have access to it. Rigorously protect your privacy using tiers and metadata, map your claims honestly so you never underrepresent your labor, and use AI with absolute integrity by logging its drists.
Don't just feed the machine, let the records serve you.
I couldn't agree more.
It is fundamentally about being prepared, remaining truthful, and retaining your agency in a rapidly shifting landscape.
We are going to leave you with one final thought to mull over today. Think about an incredibly complex piece of problem solving you did this week. Maybe you navigated an intense family logistics crisis that required 4 backup plans, or you untangled a really messy, poorly defined project at work that no one else wanted to touch.
We all have those moments.
If you needed to completely pivot your life tomorrow, change careers, move cities, start over, what physical proof exists that your extraordinary effort actually happened? If the answer is none, what invisible parts of your brilliance are fading from your own record right now simply because a system didn't give you a title for it?